We sat down and said we're going to make 100 AI videos in 100 days. And by the 100th day, at the end of the series, we got more than 150 million views. A human in NAS does not upload campaigns on Meta anymore. This is all done by an AI agent. When they say the AI is not useful, it's because they haven't solved a core issue in their business.
So Alex, super excited to nerd out with you today. I'll let you tell the story, but as a brief overview, you start NAS Daily, you get 70 million followers, 300 views a month, so it's more than CNN. And then you have this aha moment where you're like, hey, AI is a revolution. We want to help businesses, and we're pivoting to be an AI first company and help transform businesses. Like, what was that moment for you?
So just as a background, first of all, Brian, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Excited.
Super excited to be here. We've got a lot to discuss. So yeah,
So
as you
much.
said, so much. As you said, 2016, we started NAS as a company. We started as a social media channel on Facebook. We were making social media videos with a human, Nusara, the founder of NAS. I'm going to shoot with a camera. It wasn't even a phone. Edit with software, travel around the world physically. And we did this for many years, and we worked with many clients, generating hundreds of billions of views. As you said, 300 million views a month. But there was a tipping point for us, which was the moment that Google's VO3 model came out. When we saw the results of VO3, we realized that we are entering an entirely new world of how you make social media content and how you do marketing. And the day after VO3 came out, we said, right, we have this massive social media channel that we're doing all human videos. We are going to make AI only content. We sat down as a team, and from that day forward, we said we're going to make 100 AI videos in 100 days. And I'll tell you, with having already an existing audience of millions of people, the first few days, people hated the content. They said, this is terrible. You're destroying the channel. What are you doing? And as a team, we said, no, let's hold our nerve. Let's keep going. And we got better and better and better. And by the 100th day, at the end of the series, we got more than 150 million views. And the feedback we were getting was that these are better than the human videos. And this opened up our eyes to the possibilities. And this is where we as a business said, we are going to become truly AI first. We as a business are becoming truly AI first. And we said, right, we are going to also apply this to the technology we're building to help businesses market and grow online.
What do you think you did differently to finally crack it for you guys?
I think at the beginning, and this is so relevant to any way you apply AI in your business, we were just excited by the technology. So we were like, wow, you can make this really cool piece of content with AI. Like, I remember one of the early videos we made was like a sensei who was giving you advice in a forest in Japan. And we're like, wow, this is really cool. But the truth is that we were focused more on trying to excite people and be like, wow, this is cool, versus saying, does it tell a good story? And marketing has always been about storytelling. And when we got over the fact that this technology allows you to generate really cool images and videos and focus more on, let's make a really compelling story and use AI to tell that story better. That's when we started seeing audiences and customers resonate. So AI becomes the support vehicle to achieve your goal, not the place that you start. When we understood that, it opened our minds. And I can give examples as well of how that works in practice.
Well, I imagine, because we're seeing a similar thing where I imagine before you have the components of marketing is so important, which is the story, the connection with the audience, the things that you inherently understand the AI doesn't, right? And there's the execution side of that story. And it seems like AI is taking over the execution side to give you more time, more space to create better content for folks and make the story resonate better.
I think when you look at brand building, whether it's through content, whether it's through, copy, whatever it may be, ultimately it often comes down to human connection, emotional connection to the product, the brand, to the business. And I think a lot of us today think that we can just outsource that human connection to AI. But today I still think a lot of that connection comes through intuition, experience, emotional intelligence. And so when you keep that within your team, within your business, But then, as you say, focus on how do I execute on that with AI technology, AI tools, models, etc. That's when you get the perfect combination. So for us as NAS Daily, as a social media channel, we were able to emotionally connect and inspire throughout our content. And that was something, yes, AI can help with the workflow of how you tell the story, but I am yet to see that it can truly replace that feeling.
Yeah. The intuition is a hard part. The intuition, the storytelling, it's hard for AI to get that because it's not living in the world we're living in. Is that where, so like, I feel like a lot of people mess up the ROI side, right? They'll like invest a ton in AI, see nothing, get frustrated and say, hey, AI is not for me, or AI can't do it. Where are you seeing the biggest ROIs on the AI side?
So I want to use that example that I said earlier about we focus on what's flashy and what's exciting and what's interesting versus what actually drives results. So when I go into companies, I see a lot of, wow, I used Claude to build this really cool automation, or now I can visualize this in a really interesting way. But the truth is, how useful is that to my day-to-day job? Or does it deliver a specific ROI or output for my business? If that output is nice to have, but is not fundamental to my business, I am likely after a while to think, wow, this was not so useful. AI is just smoke and mirrors and it's not actually core to my business. So fundamentally, whatever we're building, whether it's an AI agent or whether it's a process or an automation or a bot, it needs to be fundamental to my day-to-day operations as a business. So for example, if I need to generate, we're in the marketing business. I should be really clear with everyone. We are here to help people market their products and get more customers. That's what we do as NAS agents. If you are thinking about ads, Facebook ads or Google ads, if whatever you build with AI does not lower the cost per lead or lower the time you spend uploading your ads or analyzing your ads, anything else you're doing is not core. Right? So I think that's the mistake people make. When they say that AI is not useful, it's because they haven't solved a core issue in their business. And those issues are harder. That's why they need a bit more thought and they need more patience, they need more time. So that's the difference I see.
So, okay, let's go through an example. So like what is a core, when you say a core issue in the business, what is that?
If we break it down very simply, a business is about really three things. How much revenue I make, how much do I spend, and how much profit do I have? Let's just take it at that very high level. So I would say on the revenue side, if I'm building, let's say AI agents, so very clear for everyone, an AI agent that I think about, I don't think about a bot. I think about an agent that's doing tasks for you. Are those tasks helping generate revenue? So let's talk about specifically what would generate revenue. Generate revenue would be doing an action that gives you more leads for your business. Another action may be getting someone who's interested to book a call. That would be another action, like a sales call to convert. Another one may be to resurrect someone who's lost interest in your business, right? These are things that generate leads or revenue. A cost saving would be, I previously would spend 10 hours doing this task, and now it takes less than 1 hour, right? That is a cost saving measure. And then of course, profit is revenue plus cost, right? Right. So I think if it's not doing one of those two or three things, it is nice to have, it's not essential. And we are in and I'll say this at one point and then I'd love to hear your thoughts. We are in the era of what I call research and development for AI. Every company is going through their R&D phase. So imagine when for example, pharma companies, they develop a new drug. They say, I'm going to have a lot of money spent to do my research and development to get the winning formula for my drug. And then once I get the winning formula, I then, operationalize it and I make money. In every company, we're spending a lot of money, we're spending a lot of time figuring out how can I use this AI technology until we hit the nail on the head. And then we'll be like, how can we make it really efficient? And so there is naturally things we'll experiment with, but I think we need to be more disciplined as businesses to be like, what is actually driving revenue? What is actually driving cost?
And maybe I agree with you entirely. And maybe more specifically, what I think about it is AI enables you to do things faster and cheaper, right? Do activities faster and cheaper, right? But you still have to decide which activities you do. And so if you decide on the wrong activities, you're not going to see an ROI. And so I think it's almost a resource allocation problem where you're thinking through, if you choose the correct activities, you see an ROI. If you choose the wrong activities, you just burn tokens.
I'll give you a very real example in marketing, which is where NAS Agents operates.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people, a lot of companies who are using AI to build dashboards. They're saying, I need to see what my business is doing, so I'm going to build an AI agent to generate a dashboard every day. And my question to them is really the problem with solving the dashboard? Or is the problem with solving what we do with the information from the dashboard? So if the dashboard is visualized every day and says, wow, my Google ads are not doing well. I mean, that's great, but that's not going to drive revenue or save you cost. What you really want your AI to do is to say, I have gone into your Google ads. I have gone into your Google ads and I found that this campaign in Google is performing really inefficiently. And I want you to turn this campaign off, and I want you to instead invest the resources in this other Google campaign that is performing really well. This is the difference. So going back to the resource allocation part, it's like, how do you design your AI agents? And just like in the pre-AI world, when we design something badly in our systems, it would not work well. Designing the right agent is actually the most important thing you can do.
I would almost argue that that the decision is the same as the pre-AI world. It's just the cost and time has gone down, right? So
Yes.
like, if you weren't going to do that thing before AI, you probably shouldn't do the thing anyway. So as an example, you said a dashboard. Well, a dashboard that doesn't change your behavior is useless. A dashboard that changes your behavior is positive. We shouldn't do the useless thing before AI. You probably shouldn't do it during AI too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we need to look at what actually makes us. So in the old world, we think through what tools we have. So we say, when we want to analyze data, we need to generate a dashboard, and then we need a human to analyze the dashboard and come up with recommendations. In the AI world, we should come back to like, what is the end state? It's the recommendation. So we don't need to build all that stuff with AI. We need to think about, how can AI give me the recommendation? This is a different way of thinking. And I think a lot of businesses try and AIify their existing process rather than saying, let's build an entirely new process that gets me to the answer faster.
Yeah. How would you, or said a different way, can you think of any examples, or maybe with clients or within NAS itself, where you've seen a solid ROI?
Yes. So a very simple example with marketing is, we have people who think of the creative around marketing. So they think about, what should the ad be? How do I create the ad? And then I have other people in the company who literally sit on Facebook Ads Manager, Meta Ads Manager, and click upload the campaign, run, turn off the campaign. And so this is like what happens. You have the creative side and you have the execution side. Today, a human in NAS does not upload campaigns on Meta anymore. It does not turn off campaigns anymore. Does not even analyze what it means anymore. This is all done by an AI agent. Think about how wild that is. And by the way, if I talk to the ads guy in my team, he's like, I am so grateful. He's not saying my job is disappearing. He's saying, I've always wanted to focus on the strategic part of my work. I haven't wanted to go into Meta Ads Manager and click upload and click turn off and click. So that has transformed what, his job satisfaction, what he's spending his time on. And it's transformed, like, we can now run multiple campaigns, like hundreds of campaigns, without needing an agency. And it's just changed how we operate. And that's like very, very practical.
So let's use that example. So ads, right? There's two components that you just said. One is our costs went down, right, to run ads because we don't have to do these things anymore. The other side is our analysis, ability to analyze went up, right? So that tells me two sides. One side is our costs went down, and theoretically, our ability to generate more revenue from our ads has gone up. Have you been seeing that? And like, what kind of analysis can you do today that you weren't able to do in the past?
Yes. So I'll give two real examples. The first thing is that if you hire any employee, they are not working 24/7. So on the cost saving side, sometimes in the middle of the night, there could be an asset or an ad campaign that's just performing really badly. In the pre-AI world, what would happen is it would perform badly for 12 to 14 hours until your employee wakes up, deep dives into the ad campaign and says, oh, I've looked at all the ad campaigns. Let's say you have 100 running and this one is not doing well. Let's turn it off. And they may have to go and then check with their manager and then turn it off. In the AI world, what happens is in the middle of the night, as soon as you see, let's say, a couple of hours of bad performance, the AI agent already reduces the spend or even pauses it for you. So you save 9 hours of wasted money on something that is not working. So that's like a cost perspective side. On the revenue side, what you see is that let's say you're running 100 campaigns. My question to everyone is, do you believe that your marketing manager or your agency is truly looking at every single campaign and looking at where the opportunity is of each individual asset and telling you this specific asset in this specific campaign has a lot more potential to scale and we should actually increase the budget or we should take that asset out and run it independently? Do you believe that your team has the bandwidth and the capacity to do it at that level? And what we found is the truth is no. Humans apply, and I do this myself, we tend to apply the Pareto principle, right? We say that 20% of the actions generate 80% of the value. So we'll focus on the 20% that moves the needle. But if you really want to grow revenue, and if you could have the ability to look at 100%, you would, right? And that's what AI allows you to do. It allows you to look at 100% of the campaigns, 100% of the marketing simultaneously in real time. That is the possibility. So again, it's not replacing what a human do. It's saying a human plus, 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 plus.
Yeah. I like that example a lot. So like on the cost side, there's two sides. One is the employee time. Sure. That one makes sense. The other one is waste down, right? But I feel like in the pre-AI space, if ads weren't doing well, you could have some kind of code turn it off. Like that existed. But the part that does that you mentioned on eking out 100% of what's done instead of just the 80-20, that wasn't possible before because you need judgment. And so like those opportunities where things that we left through the cracks before, like I see it on the sales side in terms of follow-ups. Like when you have setters going after folks, closers going after folks, there's the few that they're like, hey, this isn't going to be worth my time. Well, it's worth AI's time, and so we can close more deals.
I had actually a great example. There was a customer of NAS agents that I spoke to last week who said, when you have a sales team, what happens is they look at all the leads and they score them and they say, these have the highest chance of closing. I'm going to spend all my time focused on that. And it makes sense, right? The incentives that they get for commission align them to do that. But within the other 80% of leads, there is still opportunity. And the question we would say is, what if there was an AI agent that was just working on those? You know, talking to them, reaching out, assessing the opportunity, assessing what's changed, and saying, look, actually, there's a lead in this system that has, since they inquired with us, has actually doubled their revenue because we've read press announcements about them. We've seen the activity they're doing online. This is an opportunity that we should reach out and re-engage. And actually, I've re-engaged them for you. I've already reached out congratulating them for their recent expansion into Georgia and try to set up a call for you. So I think on the sales side, there is that all that opportunity that we're not looking at, having 100% breadth rather than just 20%.
There's a ton.
There's a ton. I will add one point. You challenged and you said, well, on the cost saving, there are ways that you can set up systems where, something's not working, you turn it off. There's one element that AI allows you to do on that I don't think people are talking enough about, which is, and I use again the ads example. Sometimes something's not working, but there's a seasonality component. It's not working because it's a weekend. It's not working because it's Labor Day, right? What AI can do is look at the context and historically, is this a one-off? Is this seasonality or is the campaign really performing bad? If it's just a weekend thing, you actually shouldn't turn the campaign off. You should say, look, every weekend it's bad. hold the fort and maybe reduce the spend a little bit, but hold the fort and scale up. Or, oh, it's Labor Day, it's expected. So I think that we can be more sophisticated on the cost saving side rather than making rash decisions. But I do agree, for every business here, the question we should really be asking, which is a more complicated question, is how do we get 100% of the opportunity in front of me to grow, not just how I can save money.
Yes, I agree. I like that distinction because I think what AI enables us to do is scale judgment and insight. Whereas in the pre-AI world, we had what I'll call deterministic thing. If this, then that. We always had that, right? And so like people will run if this, then that and say, yes, like AI has an ROI. I don't think that's true, but I think anything that requires judgment or insight that can happen while we're sleeping, that's where the opportunities are the biggest. And so in your case, it's setters going after folks and figuring out who's an opportunity that we can go after 100% of the people. Sales folks. In your case, it's ads. Like there's a lot.
There is a lot. And I think this moves nicely into the next question, really, that Brian, you and I discussed offline before, which is you see all this opportunity in front of you. Do you build it yourself? Do you build it? Do you not build it? Like, how do you approach all this opportunity? And, I don't know, Brian, I know you have thoughts on this. I can definitely share some initial thoughts that I have, which is that I think that every company here should be building stuff themselves and experimenting with what they can do. And I think that it comes from the top. We can talk as leaders all we want about applying AI in our business, but I think employees need to see it. They need to see you as a leader build stuff. And when they see it, it becomes more real. So if everyone sits there in in the board meeting or in the weekly stand up and saying, hey, we should be doing more in AI, the average user in the company will say, well, what does that mean? Does that mean I need to use Claude more? Does that mean I need to prompt more? So I think there is that it is an internal culture setting, which is I need to build stuff. But there is always a problem with building stuff, which is that, and let's just say, and I can give an example, my company, the CEO, I'm the COO. The CEO built a really cool agent, which was all around when you can't get in contact with the CEO to ask them a question, we have an agent where you can actually tag them and flag specific things, and it will actually consolidate and rank based on priority what the CEO needs to address. And he gets a newspaper every morning generated of the key things he needs to care about from the day before from his team. And this is really cool. We all love it because we can tag and make sure our priorities are addressed. But the question is, who is maintaining this agent after it's built? And I think a lot of companies don't think enough about, they think a lot about, let's build cool stuff. But who's looking after it? Who's maintaining it? Who's making it better? When it breaks, who's responsible for fixing it? And that becomes really hard when everyone's building this stuff on the side. But what are your thoughts, Brian? Because I know you're building a lot of AI agents, in your own team, in your own company. So how do you think about building stuff versus maintaining it?
Well, so just to make it super concrete, right? Like maintaining for me used to be a buzzword until I built my own CRM and now have to maintain it, right? And so just to give an example what maintaining means, it means APIs change. Like you have to connect all of these, you have to set up all these connectors, and then the provider may change that. And so then you have to go ahead and set it up again, right? I'm trying to think what are the biggest maintenance costs, I guess, that people don't see coming?
Okay, so one is you're right that you're connected to specific software and they change the connector. Another thing could be that you make a change, you update something. So for example, you add a new system in place and that system doesn't interact well with the existing system that you built. And there's a problem, right? Who's going to fix that? Another one could be that actually the model has changed. So OpenAI or Claude has released a new model. Who's going to be responsible for updating that? What are the knock-on effects of that? You add more people who can access it, right? And they encounter an issue. They're like, hey, when I talk to your agent, it doesn't give me the result that I need. Who's going to improve it? So just like any software, there is a constant need to improve it. And also on top of that, I would add, as the technology gets better, which it gets better all the time, the expectations are that the agent should get better too. So you need to make it better. Who is going to make the agent better? And the reason why this is a problem versus when you typically have bought software or used software in the past is that the person who's built this is not a software engineer. It's a operations manager. It's a marketing manager. It's it's someone's part-time job. So let's enter a world where that person has built 10 agents. Is he going to now turn into a full-time agent builder? These are the questions that every company is talking to me about. They're saying, I love the building side, but I haven't figured out yet how I'm going to keep these agents working well.
And when you say build, are you referring to more agents or software? And then 2 is, when you say agents, define that. Let's talk about that.
So let's talk about software versus, do you want me to start with software versus agents?
Let's define agents and then kind of get into software versus agents.
So the way I like to think, I think a lot of people misunderstand what an AI agent is, actually. So it's good that we define this. The way I see an AI agent in the simplest terms is it's like an AI employee that does tasks for you proactively. So if I build an automation or a bot, what tends to happen is that it is reactive. So something happens. For example, I get a lead that comes into my company. A bot would take that lead and send it as an email to my employee to talk to. An agent would take that lead, would qualify that lead and say, is this a good or bad lead? It would then decide based on that who to send it to, and may also say, hey, based on the leads that I'm seeing that this source of where you're getting the leads is better than the other source. So the way I think about it simply is that an AI agent is a proactive, autonomous AI employee. And eventually what you want an AI agent to do is you want to set it a goal, and the agent works by itself to achieve that goal. That's how I think about the difference.
And maybe I'll add, so like in my head, there's levels of AI maturity, right? And so level 1, I think most people are past now, which is using it purely like a chatbot, right? Which is consumer ChatGPT. It's Claude, not Cowork, but Claude Chat, right? And just asking questions to it like Google. That's level 1. Then level 2 is, okay, you ask it questions, but then also does stuff. It does an activity for you, right? That's what I'll call level 2. And I think that's where most folks are at today, which is I've graduated from using to a chatbot. Now I get it to answer my questions and do activities for me, right? So that's things like Claude Cowork, Claude Code, those kind of things. Codex, which changed its name, I believe. And so then now we're talking about moving from level 2 to level 3, which is not only does it do things for you, but we've bucketed it into an employee that has goals. It has a mission. It can wake up and do things. It can get triggered when an activity happens and proactively do stuff for you. That proactivity, I think, is the difference between level 2 and level 3.
Absolutely. I would 100% agree with that. And I think most CEOs and companies are in the world of reactive AI. It's like call and response AI. I tell them to do something, it does it. And I think where we all need to get to is the proactive AI. And that is what actually, as a company, NAS Agents, we build proactive AI marketing agents that are doing things for you. They're not asking you to call and response. They are doing things for you based on a goal, right? I want more leads. I want to save cost. I want to, improve my ads, whatever the goal is. That transition is obviously not easy because it's not just about the technology. It's about thinking in that way. Like, how do I design something in that way? So that's number 1, the definition of an agent. But now let's take that and compare software to agents. So building software, the CRM point you made, Brian, is a great example. let's say Alex used to use Monday.com for my CRM, and now I've built my own Monday.com. Right? That's the idea of building software. Now, the reason I use Monday.com, by the way, I love the guys at Monday.com, it's because there was a real case on X where someone said, I have just rebuilt Monday.com by vibe coding, and this affected the share price of Monday.com. It was quite crazy. Like the share has actually dropped when that happened. So there are people out there who are saying, yes, I can rebuild my own CRM. And the question I think we were trying to answer was like, should you build your own CRM or not? And the answer that I have for every CEO goes back to your point about resource allocation, which is that it's not just about building Monday.com as it is today. We've got to understand that Monday.com or Salesforce or HubSpot have product managers who every day are living, breathing, sleeping, eating. How can I make HubSpot, Monday, Salesforce better? How can I adopt new technologies into these CRMs? How can I make a certain thing that's not working so well today work better, faster, stronger? So when you build your own, what you've got to answer as a company is, am I prepared to make that long-term investment to continually make this new software that I've built better and better and better? And is it worth it? Is it worth my time and cost? Or is it better that I spend $100 a month, $500 a month, and actually use a software that other people are putting their time and effort in? And there'll be some scenarios where option one is better. And there'll be some scenarios where it's better to outsource it. And there is no single right answer. I will give you my answer of what I see for my company. And I think that for us, I want to focus on building my own things where I am really strong at. And I want to outsource the things that I don't believe that my company is really strong at. Do I think that we should build our own CRM? No. I think there are companies that have shown they're excellent at that. Do I think we should build our own marketing agents? Yes, because our company is really strong at that. So I think that's the way we need to think about this. Why would we focus our energy on things that are not our expertise? Mm-hmm. But what do you think, Brian?
So I will admit, I am one of those folks who built my own CRM.
Okay. And how do you feel about it?
I like it. And the reason I like it is the level of personalization. And so for us, I run a talent business. I also do some AI consulting, and then I have a podcast, right? And those are three very different things. But the way it's like, I have agents that build my content. I have agents that track it. I have agents that like kind of help with newsletter, and then also help me keep strong relationships with folks, right? So like if you go out and do something cool, I've got scanners that like pull socials and shoot me a text, go, Alex just did this cool thing. I go congratulate them. And so like that level of personalization where like content gets created for me, I get advised of folks doing new things, all in one central place, I do like. But what I'll admit is I built it by accident. And so what happened for me was I believe that AI agents can't really function without data. And so I spent an exorbitant amount of time making sure our data was clean, which had all these components together. And then I joined a hackathon that helped me like just for a day, that helped me kind of visualize the data that I put in, and it accidentally became a CRM. So I actually think the data part in the back end was the hardest part of building the whole thing. The UX, like the front end of the process, was harder than I thought it would be. But nothing compared to the data side. I think the data is the real beast of the whole process.
So let me ask you a question. How many hours do you think you spent building this? If you had like an estimate.
Just the UX or the data side?
No, the whole thing. You know, combined. You built this custom software. Like, how long do you think it took you to build?
How long do I think it took me to build? Longer than it should, for sure. Probably.
Was it like 20 hours, 50 hours, 100 hours?
Probably 50.
Okay, So I think that's actually a very fair amount. And I think the question we need to ask, and every company should ask, is what if you took that 50 hours and you took an existing CRM and said, I'm going to apply those 50 hours to make that CRM customize and work for me? Because like, for example, a lot of these CRMs have agents. Would it be better? Would it be worse? I actually don't have the answer in your case. But I think when we make this decision as a business, we mistake the enjoyment of building our own thing with actually whether it's useful and practically better for our business. And what I think is going to happen in 6 months, and you'll tell me, Brian, if this is true, but I think in 6 months, you're going to be like, I'm less excited about the hours I'm spending improving and maintaining it than I was when I built it. And my bet is at that point, there is going to be a big shift and companies are going to realize that it's cheaper to actually move to an existing CRM with agents than it is to build my own. I do think that there is a journey we have to go on and that everyone should try and build their own. That's why it's a bit nuanced here. But I think that's where we're going to get. Now, for a company like NAS that builds its own agents for marketing, for others to use, I get asked this all the time. Why should I use you versus build my own? And the answer I see in marketing is very simple. Technologically, you could build your own Google Ads agent. But the guy I have building my Google Ads agent, or the team I have, is spending millions of dollars a month on Google Ads. So they're bringing the knowledge, the insights, the systems, the strategies of what someone who spends multi-million dollars a year into the agent. Now think about it. I'm now a small business. I now get access for a very little money to an agent with the knowledge and the training of multi-million dollar campaigns. That's where I see the build versus buy argument. I think that if software that's also can give you access to knowledge and insight that is worth more than just coding, this is where I think it makes sense to work with companies like NAS. If you just want an operational process automated, then I think we should build it internally. And I think that's where the future of this question is going to go.
How do you think about, so a lot of folks are putting their skills out there for free, right? And I also find myself going into GitHub, collecting folks I respect who've made their skills public, dropping into my agents and saying like, hey, can you absorb this in my ecosystem? Tell me what's interesting, tell me what's not, and let's keep updating the operating system as it goes. Someone like you, I imagine, has the ability to choose components of the skills that makes, like an expert would be able to choose components of the skills that make sense, don't make sense, etc., so that the company can have the best outcome, right? What are the benefits of working with someone like you as opposed to going to GitHub and downloading a skill myself?
Let's think about it from it's a great question, and I think about it from a different lens. If you're building a company, there's a lot of information out there on how to make a great podcast, how to build a great recruitment company, right? But ultimately, you still need to hire people. You still need to work with experts. And I think that the reality is that there's a difference between understanding the knowledge versus applying the knowledge. And so we can theoretically understand how to build multi-million-dollar ad campaigns, but it doesn't mean we can execute it in the right way. So I think it's really beneficial as a CEO, CMO who's watching this podcast or listening. You should absolutely do your best to understand how this stuff works. This is going to make you a better product builder, a better CEO. You're going to make better decisions. Does that mean you need to implement what you read on GitHub? Maybe, maybe not. And it probably depends on the complexity of the problem, how much your business is riding on its success, how much you're spending. There are many factors that will help you decide, but I don't think we should confuse knowledge versus execution. Theoretically, we all know how to build Airbnb, right? As a company, it doesn't mean we should all build Airbnb. And I think that's where, because the cost of building has gone very low, we sometimes don't appreciate the level of execution required to make something super successful.
I actually think I agree. And I also think this is similar to the build buy decision we talked about a second ago. One reason is security, which we could talk about in a second.
Yes.
The other reason I think is, so you said, what's the difference between my CRM and Monday.com, right? Monday.com has experts who have just spent all they do is figure out how do I make the best CRM possible. However, it's the best CRM possible for as many people as possible. It's got to be generalized. And so I do sacrifice some level of personalization, customization in order to use a more general CRM, right?
Yes.
And so there are components of my business where it makes sense to go with the expert created general version. And those are components that, as we talked about at the beginning, aren't the core components of our business. But then there's things there where I need it contextualized to us. And those components of the business that have to be specific to our business is where I bring in someone like you who can take a look and say, hey, you need this part, not this part. We're going to take this over here and put that here. Watch out for this. Those kind of like context aware decisions that you can help folks through, I don't think exist if you were to download it from GitHub.
That's true. And what we as a NAS agents, we are not a agency of developers who just build you whatever you want. We are building our own agents that we're making better every single day. And these are agents that can apply to your business. So that's the difference between reading something on GitHub where you're like, oh, how can I build something that's relevant to my business versus this is a super powerful email marketing agent that, does X, Y, and Z. It's like a product. And then let's apply it to my business and customize and personalize the workflow. But the ability of the agent is all the things that we've built over time. So to your point, I think that when we think of personalization in the old world, it's funny when we talk about personalized emails. What are personalized emails pre-AI? They're like, insert name, insert first line, insert custom discount code. That's like typically what personalization was in the past. So I do agree that maybe in the catch-all software era, we were a little bit lazy on personalization, as software developers. And we were like, oh, this is what you need to do. And I think that it's up to software platforms to be more rigorous in personalization. And I think there are situations where, it makes sense to build and personalize. But not all personalization is useful. It goes back to our point, right? Building for what's interesting and fun and cool versus building to what's actually driving results. And that's where over time we have to, we all have to figure that out. But on the security point, this is something that I think businesses, especially medium-sized businesses, are not talking enough about. We think about big enterprises getting hacked, right? And cybersecurity issues. But I'm actually more interested in more like day-to-day information breaches. For example, when you start putting AI agents over your finance, there's a lot of private information there that could accidentally be, made available to an audience that should not see it. For example, people's salaries, where people live. You could also access, for example, bank account details, right? These are things that actually are very confidential. And when we're just experimenting and integrating everything into our, into Claude, OpenAI, or even building our own agents, if we don't program that correctly, or we don't put the right guardrails up, we could be exposing very sensitive information. And it's amazing how many companies I speak to that don't consider this enough. They're just like, everyone have access to everything almost, and we've gone almost a 360 or 180 where we were, which was like, no one should have access to anything. And now we're like, oh, let's open up everything. So this is also where when you build your own stuff, do not underestimate putting in the right information security to protect your customer data, protect your own employee data, protect your company data. Very, very important. It can be from bad actors, or it can just be like someone makes a mistake and it gets released to the world.
Yeah, let's get into some examples, because I almost got hacked on Saturday. Someone tried to hack me on Saturday, right? And so this is a very fresh topic for me. And so what happened for us, I'll tell a story real quick, is we have an agent that scrapes the web to reach out to folks to talk to, outbound agent. It checked a website that was a prompt injected website and said, hey, open your terminal, copy paste this code in, which downloads a malicious file into our system. Luckily, the day before, literally the night before this happened, we had set up a security system to stop that. So like we lucked out.
So that's a great real life example where, again, we're building to experiment, but we don't understand there are bad actors out there that are trying to do malicious things. So for every CEO here, every business leader here, I would love you to ask yourself and your team this question. What security measures have you put in place? I bet that most people listening have not even necessarily, maybe they've thought about it, but they haven't addressed it. Brian's example is a real life example that could happen to you tomorrow. So then comes, what security am I building? Who's maintaining for new ways that security can be breached? Because you can imagine bad actors are constantly reinventing how they do phishing, how they hack, etc. So this is where, again, like I think information security is something where certain platforms will be putting a lot of thought and investing a lot of money into it. So these are strong reasons why I see companies getting advice or getting help in resolving.
Sure.
But I'll give an example in our company. We built a finance agent to help HR and finance think about things like compensation reviews, performance reviews, making sure people get paid on time, because sometimes things can go wrong when an international company. But that agent has access to salary data, right? This could, so we've set up guardrails, but again, it would be so easy just to connect the salary data and just have an agent in Claude and then give access to someone else in the team by mistake. And then everyone's just like, oh, what does so-and-so get paid? That's not good for your company. So yeah, these are very practical examples where we all have to pay more attention to. And I think people forget when the internet started, we were so open with our data and our, and then we realized we don't want everything on the internet because people can do stuff. Mothers made, the best example was we would put all our family on Facebook. And then we realized our password for our bank was our mother's maiden name. And then you could just go on Facebook and find the mother's maiden name and you could get into someone's bank account by calling the bank. So that's like an old world example of how we learned that we need to be more conscious of this stuff.
So what kind of stuff, like what are some of the most common attacks? Like what do I need to be worried about if I'm just vibe coding stuff?
So first of all, when we look at the big platforms like OpenAI, like ChatGPT, Anthropic, Claude, if you read the news recently, we're recording this at the end of July, there have been situations where information on Anthropic has appeared on Google. So
yeah, I saw that.
The first piece of advice I would say is don't just assume because a platform is big that your data and information is safe. It's very important to think about if this got leaked tomorrow, if something bad happened unintentionally, like let's not assume that these platforms are intentionally doing this. This is all by accident. Am I comfortable with the information that I've connected is being released? If not, first of all, should I connect that data source? Question mark. I think that the challenge we will have is that AI performs better the more we connect. So we're incentivized to actually connect more stuff to it. But maybe a simple guardrail you can do is say, the agent that actually, you can build agents, for example, in different ways. So you can have an agent that calls on other agents to do stuff. So I'm going to keep my finance information in a separate agent that only discloses some information. And then the agent I use to call that does not have access to that end information. I know this is a bit more nuanced and complicated, but it's like the idea is creating separation between different pieces of information. Actually, in accounting and finance, we talk about that. Segregation of duties is a common term. It's the same with AI. Segregate your duties and keep things separate and make sure you have safeguards on each thing. So if one thing goes wrong or gets hacked, the other one doesn't as well. That's a very simple, practical advice. But just assume that anything you connect could be released into the open. That's not to say distrust everything, but just be healthily skeptical.
That's what we did too. So lucky we did this night before we got hacked. But we ended up making a separate agent. We called him the dirty runner to do dirty tasks. And all he does is he just goes to the internet and like looks stuff up on the internet, but he can't do anything else. And then sends it back to the smart guy who can like figure stuff out. And I also heard NVIDIA came out with a framework to figure out like, okay, if it's highly sensitive information, send it to a model that's downloaded on your computer. And if it's not sensitive, send it to the internet model. And so there's ways to handle that, but you have to design it, which is...
Yeah. I think the answer for these questions is talk, you can look this stuff up. If you're not sure, when it's something as valuable as information, talk to experts. But remember, most technology platforms, they raise a lot of money from investors because it costs, even the price has gone down because of AI, it costs a lot to maintain security. It costs a lot to maintain platform speed. It costs a lot to do product development. So that's a big consideration. Are you doing this on your own dime or are you doing this on investors' dime? That's another factor to think about. And look, Brian, we're talking about a lot of like big questions in this podcast. And I realize that there's a question today. What should I do as a CEO or as a business owner today? My short answer is experiment and build as much as you can. But the question then comes in, what should I do tomorrow? And I think tomorrow we should understand that we shouldn't just default to building ourselves. We should look at all the fact that this world is getting complicated and this world has a lot of different variables. And it's okay to say, I'm not going to build this tomorrow. And that's, I think, the decision making that I want every person listening to think about. And also think about focus where I'm best at and outsource where I don't want to spend my time. And that's another great way to think about these decisions.
So it would be fair to say in the today, tomorrow framework, today, build more than you think, right? Spend a little more, build that thing that you didn't really think you like, that you don't have to think about it too much, like build it, get some reps in so you can learn what it's like. And then tomorrow you're like, okay, now we gotta tone back a little bit and focus, resource allocate only on the things that really drive the ROI. Once you're smarter, you've had more reps. Is that roughly what?
Yes, and the additional point is you can create yourself a BS detector, which says, if I understand this, when I work with a freelancer or a platform, I can understand enough to see whether they are telling me something that really will work or whether it may be just talk.
Amazing. Well, Alex, this has been super fun. Where can folks find you?
Yeah, so first of all, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Alex Dwek. You can see more about what we do, agents.nas.com. We are working with all sorts of businesses, medium-sized businesses, to help them with marketing. So if you're interested, hit me up on LinkedIn or check us out on the website and drop us a line and be happy to chat.
Amazing. Well, thanks for coming on, Alex. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.